What's going on, guys? OJ back with another prediction video. Today, we're here to talk about UFC Vegas 102, Manel Kape versus Almabayev. I'm not gonna lie to you, this week's card is absolute dog shit. Arguably almost as bad as Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Ribas. That being said, I want to get this out of the way because I did take some time out of my day to research who I think is going to win each fight. And I want to get to more important things later throughout the week. So, without wasting too much time, I'm going to break down every fight starting from the early prelims up to the main event and give my reasonings as to why one fighter will win each fight. Without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Starting off with the early prelims, Monta De La Rosa versus Luana Carolina. I'm going to say Luana Carolina wins this, probably by decision. Important to note, it's women's MMA. You're kind of essentially coin flipping if you're actually planning on gambling on this for some bizarre reason. As for who I think is going to win, I always have a golden rule when it comes to unranked women's MMA fights, and that is to pick whoever looks more like a man. Luana Carolina, in this case, looks more like a man than Monta De La Rosa. Monta De La Rosa lost to Andrea Lee. If you're losing to Andrea Lee at any point in your career, I don't know how you're still in the roster in 2025. But here we are putting on this shit fight in a UFC Apex event. I'm going to say Luana Carolina gets this done via decision. I don't want to spend too much time thinking about this fight, so we're going to move on to the next fight. Up next, we have Carl Johnson versus Ramazan Tamirov. Now, this is actually a pretty fun fight. I'm going to say that Charles Johnson gets this done via decision. For some reason, the odds makers have Charles Johnson as a slight underdog against Ramazan Tamirov. I know Ramazan Tamirov looked really good against CJ Vergara in his debut, but again, it's CJ Vergara's bum ass. Charles Johnson is like the notorious prospect killer. Like, I don't understand how many times the UFC is going to make the same mistake of putting these hyped up prospects in front of Charles Johnson just for all of them to lose. He beat Azat Maxim, who was undefeated at the time. He beat Joshua Van, who was like 10-1 at the time. He beat Jake Hadley, who was like 10-2 at the time. And he arguably should have beat Muhammad Makayev, who was like 6-0 at the time. Tamirov, again, he's only fought CJ Vergara, and I think CJ Vergara and Charles Johnson is like a world level of skill apart. I'm going to say that Charles Johnson's experience, skill, and honestly just better talent, I guess. Like, I'm going to say all of those things will factor into Charles Johnson securing the rounds that he needs, especially if this doesn't get finished in the first round. We're going to move on to Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldridge. I can't believe I'm saying this, but picking JJ Aldridge to win a fight in 2025. Andrea Lee, she's somehow still in the UFC roster in 2025, coming off 6 consecutive losses. She unironically beat Monta De La Rosa, which is the only reason why I'm not picking Monta De La Rosa, who I said was going to lose to Luana Carolina. Andrea Lee's head game must be crazy because how the fuck does she have a job at this point? Like most elite top ranked contenders in male divisions, they are getting cut from the roster if they lose like 4 fights in a row. Like there was a time when Peter Yan was on a 3 fight skid after he lost to Merab Dvalishvili. Like people were speculating if he loses to Song Yadong, he's getting cut from the promotion. But here is Andrea Lee, unranked women's flyweight fighter, coming off 6 losses over the last 2 or 3 years, and she's still on the roster in 2025. JJ Aldridge is awful. Like, maybe on the off chance, like, JJ Aldridge could lose because, again, she's bad, but Andrea Lee, straight up ass cheeks, should lose this fight. Should be getting cut from the promotion already, but I expect her to be cut after this fight. We're going to move on to Lucas Almeida versus Danny Silva. Now, I haven't really watched Danny Silva fights in general, but I think he gets it done against Lucas Almeida. Lucas Almeida, it's not looking too good for him. He's 34 years old. He got knocked out by Andre Fili in the first round. We know how poorly that's aging right now. And he got ragdolled and arm triangled by Pat Sabatini, which again, not aging very well. It's not that I think Danny Silva is this world beater because I don't think he's had a finish in the UFC. But again, Danny Silva, he's 28. He has time to develop as a fighter. Doesn't have that many fights on his belt, to be honest. And that's not something I really like. But again, Lucas Almeida should not be on the roster, to be honest. He's not that good. I expect Danny Silva to probably get this done by decision. We're going to move on to Douglas Silva de Andrade versus John Castaneda. Yeah. I don't want to pick John Castaneda to win, but I think he gets this done. Listen, I can't pick Douglas Silva de Andrade when he's like 40 years old. He's good, but he looked really old in his last fight against Miles Johns. Like, how are you getting out techniqued by Miles Johns? Miles Johns is like a big meaty hook and a half against anyone who's capable. And it's like John Castaneda. He's not that good. He looked shit in his fight with Daniel Marcos, but I don't think there's like a power factor for Castaneda to be afraid of in this fight. Andrade, I think he just outworks you in the later rounds, but again, there's no threat on the feet whatsoever for Castaneda to be really afraid of. I think Castaneda could initiate wrestling here if he really wants to, but I don't know, to be honest. They're both at the tail end of their careers. It's just that John Castaneda is a few years younger, and he's fought relatively better competition, in my opinion. So I'm gonna expect John Castaneda to get this done. We're gonna move on to Ricardo Ramos versus Shepe Mariscal. I'm gonna say Shepe Mariscal wins this. Mariscal looked very good in his last few fights, and he has a lot of good wins in his belt. Jack Jenkins, Morgan Charrier, Trevor Peak, Damon Jackson. And I don't think Shepe Mariscal has anything to be scared of from Ricardo Ramos' side. Like, Ramos, his stand up is non existent. He got TKO'd by Lerone Murphy. That's not a good sign. Like, I know Lerone Murphy is like a top 10 contender, but you can't be getting TKO'd by Lerone Murphy. He's literally the featherweight version of Leon Edwards. Very rough for to pick Ramos, especially because he's also not that young. I think he's like 34 years old. So, and Shepe Mariscal, he's like 32, but the UFC want to take care of him as a future prospect. So I'm gonna say Shepe Mariscal gets this done. I don't think by knockout because I don't think Shepe Mariscal has as good power as many people think, but he should comfortably win this fight. We're gonna move on to Austin Lane versus Mario Pinto. I'm gonna say that Mario Pinto gets it done. He looked very good in this fight in the Dana White Contender Series. Austin Lane, he's not a fat fuck, but he is a former NFL player who just transitioned over to the UFC because he has some form of athleticism. He has zero technical skills, and I think that'll show in his fight with Mario Pinto. For goodness sakes, Austin Lane is getting knocked out by Jonata Denise, who's a blob. Let's be honest. Like, Mario Pinto, he's an actual trained mixed martial artist without the BMI comparable to Lizzo. So I'll say that heavyweight needs a new prospect, and Mario Pinto is going to be that new prospect. We're going to move on to the next fight, Danny Barlow versus Sam Patterson. I think this is going to be a hot take, but I think Sam Patterson can win this. Listen, I don't think Danny Barlow is as good as people make him out to be. He looked shit in his last fight against the Kazakhstani tomato can, who was about to get cut from the promotion. Barlow, he did beat Josh Quinlan in the third round, but Josh Quinlan is dog shit, and he's been cut from the UFC since. Sam Patterson, I know he's not that good, but he's moving up from lightweight to welterweight, and I think that's a factor considering the massive skill difference between typical lightweights and welterweights. And also, what if the fight takes to the ground? I think Sam Patterson has more options than Danny Barlow. So far, all we've seen Danny Barlow is a very good left hand, and okay striking everywhere else, and we don't know what his grappling looks like. If the fight takes place on the ground, I say that Sam Patterson has the advantage because we've seen him lock up arm triangles before. I just think that Sam Patterson has better skills and he has more ways to win this fight. And I don't think Danny Barlow is as good as people think. So I'm going to say that Sam Patterson can get the job done in an upset. We're going to move on to William Gomez versus Hyder Emil. I'm also going to say Hyder Emil pulls off an upset. Not going to lie, William Gomez's entire career is kind of a fraud. Gomez, he should have lost his last fight to Joe Anderson Brito. I don't know how he got a TKO win over Giannis Gamori. He took the guy in the nuts to get a TKO win, which is insane to think about. And Hyder Emil, he's dangerous. I know he fought absolute schmucks like Fernie Garcia, but he's dangerous. He knocked them all out in the first round. And Emil, he can throw with nasty venom in his strikes. But the difference between him and a Joe Anderson Brito, in my opinion, is that Hyder Emil is more calculated with his strikes. Who knows how Emil looks grappling wise, but is Gomez really going to initiate like takedowns or anything? The most he's probably going to do is just clinch up against the fence like what he did against Joe Anderson Brito. The UFC want Hyder Emil to win this because if they really wanted to take care of William Gomez, they wouldn't have made this matchup. I think they're really pissed about the fact that William Gomez won that robbery decision against Joe Anderson Brito because Joe Anderson Brito was on his way to becoming a star in the featherweight division. But either way, I'm saying that Hyder Emil will pull off the upset. I don't know why a lot of people on Tapology are saying that William Gomez will win this via decision, but who knows? We're going to move on to the next fight for now, though. Up next, we have Nasrat Hakparas versus Esteban Ribovics. Now, I love Esteban Ribovics, and I think he's going to knock out Nasrat Hakparas. Ribovics is talented. He's a lot faster than Hakparas, and he's a lot more dangerous, in my opinion. Hakparas is getting tagged up by the likes of Jared Gordon, who's good, but Jared Gordon is not an athletic phenom, while Esteban Ribovics is. Both fighters have only shown capabilities of throwing strikes, and they don't really take the fight to the ground. And in a pure striking battle, I'm going to say Ribovics gets this done. Maybe Hakparas can shoot a takedown, but again, we've never seen him implement this successfully in any of his fights, and I'm not about to pick Hakparas to successfully implement it right now. I'm going to say that Ribovics is going to get it done. He has a lot of momentum. The UFC really loved this guy after what he did to Daniel Zohuber at UFC 306. And I just think he's a lot better as a MMA fighter in general. I really can't wait to see Ribovics win this because I think after this, maybe one more win and he'll get a ranked contender. And depending on who the UFC gives him, I think Ribovics can get very far into the rankings. But that's another topic for another video, and we're gonna move on to the next fight for now. Oh my god, we have Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but Cody Brundage is gonna win this. Why the fuck is this fight in the co-main event slot of a UFC event in 2025? The UFC had to scour through the entire roster to find someone that Cody Brundage can actually beat. Like, how is Julian Marquez still on the roster in 2025? He's coming off 3 losses in a row. The only wins are the guys who are cut from the UFC. And, like, again, like, he's dog shit. He lost to Zachary Reese in 20 seconds. What the why is this I'm just pissed off that this fight is being made. I'm sorry. Like, I can't take this fight seriously. You know what it is? It's fucking Bo Nickel. Because the UFC wanna, like, push Bo Nickel so hard, they're putting Cody Brundage on the co-main event slot of a random Apex event. Fuck you, Bo Nickel. Thanks to your fucking incompetence and the UFC being a fucking industry plant machine for you, we have to watch Cody Brundage fight in a co-main event slot in 2025. I don't care who wins. Cody Brundage will probably win because Julian Marquez is just a fucking tomato can. I don't care who wins. Cut both of them, to be honest, but definitely cut whoever loses, and I'm gonna expect it to be Julian Marquez after this fight. All right, moving on to the main event. We have Manel Cap versus Asu Almabayev. I'm gonna say Manel Cap gets this done. Like, it's kind of hard to say that, however, because Cap can look like shit. Like, I know a lot of people are remembering Manel Cap from his performance against Bruno Silva, but then there's also performances like where he fought Muhammad Makayev or Mateusz Nicolau. He'll just throw like 5 strikes around and be like, "Oh, why the fuck did I not win the round?" Like, dummy, you gotta throw more than 5 strikes a round. Like, it's so hard to pick Cap to win a fight, but Almabayev, I don't know what he's good at. I think Almabayev is just a worse version of Muhammad Makayev. I don't even know how he's in the top 10. And I've watched all his fights from when he choked out Ode Osborne to when he was going tit for tat with Mateusz Nicolau till he dropped Nicolau in the third round. He took CJ Vergara to the decision. He took Jose Johnson to a decision. I don't really see any finishing potential from Almabayev for me to think that he's a threat to Manel Cap. But on the other hand, I think Manel Cap is just so much better on the feet that Almabayev is going to get picked apart if he can't get the takedowns. And even if Almabayev can get the takedowns, is he going to finish Manel Cap? I don't see that. He couldn't finish CJ Vergara's bum ass. Like, I'm not about to expect Almabayev to finish Manel Cap, who's actually got very good grappling, defensively at least. I just don't care about this fight. It should have been Manel Cap versus Kai Kara France, but here we are, just putting on a random bullshit flyweight main event because, again, it's an Apex event. Nobody really watches these cards other than degenerate gamblers or hardcore addicted fans like myself. And it's just a shame because a lot of these matchups could have been avoided, if not like modified. But here we are. We have a very dog shit, mediocre fight card to look forward to this week. And yeah, I'm gonna say Manel Cap gets it done, but it's hard for me to trust him. I I could see Almabayev just smudging up Cap, but again, I just don't think Almabayev's that good. All right, but that's gonna be it for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about UFC Vegas 102, and let me know in the comments who you guys think will win in the main event. But other than that, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.